there is no good place. There is no, well, if we get over near the shore and there's rocks. And you get over here and there's waves. And you get over here and there's shoals. And there's perils on every side. I mean, if it's not running out of food, then it's not running out of water, then the water's in the boat and there's perils on every side when you're in a storm. You know, somebody says, you like the storm? No. Yeah, it'd be crazy to like the storm. I mean, sure, I realize it's fun when you're a kid, you know. Like my kids, sometimes like in the summer, when it's hot and hot and hot and hot and it hasn't rained like in August for about a month, and then all of a sudden it starts raining, they'll walk out in the thing, you know, it's so nice, and you know, oh, this is really nice in a storm. Yeah, but you were in a nice house and you walked out there. When you're in a storm, the first thing you want to do is get out. I've been in storms up in Michigan and up north and out west, in snowstorms. Like here, you get rain and you get so much rain you can't see. I mean, if it's really coming down, you can't see. And I've been in snowstorms, they call them whiteouts. And all of a sudden you can't see anything. You can't even see the hand in front of your face. But there's peril on every hand. And then another thing in a storm, you know what it is? It's hard to know your directions. You lose your directions. Oh, that Kennedy boy that went ahead and got in a plane accident with his wife, he was flying that airplane, and they say that when you're in a storm in the airplane, that you can lose your equilibrium, and you don't even know if you're upside down or if you're going down or if you're going up. And did you know a lot of times that's how it is when you're in a storm? When you're in a storm, you lose direction. You don't know which way is north, which way is south. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's so hard in a storm, you don't even know if the sun's shining. You can't even tell which way is up or which way is down. But that's okay, because there's some things, like I say, when you're in a storm, you just have to trust God. Amen. And if you name, and I realize, I mean, that like the saying goes about a storm, either you've just come out of a storm, or you're getting ready to go into a storm, or you're in a storm. I mean, there's only three things. But it's limited vision, it's peril on every hand, it's hard to keep your directions, and then you know what about a storm? It comes in quickly. All of a sudden everything was fine, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a storm. I mean, and I'm talking about spiritual and physical and everything. I mean, everything's just fine, and then somebody says, oh, did you hear about this? You know? Doctor says, well, I need to tell you this. Or you get a phone call. That's the thing I hate worse. If you want to get a hold of me, don't call me at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, sometimes my boys, they'll call me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. How you doing, Dad? Well, I'm doing good. How are you? I mean, you lived over here. You know what time it is. I mean, you know, what are you going to tell me? But it comes so quick. You're not ready for it. How do you get ready for it? Well, you get ready for it by just trusting in God. Just saying, well, the Lord see, He see it. But anyways, you know what? The storm comes in quickly. And then you know what? It seems like when you're in the midst of a storm, it seems like the end will never come. You know that? And I guess that's one of the hardest things about a storm. I mean, you always want everything to everything fix itself. You just say, well, you know, I wish it was just over, because it's hard to get that way when you're in a storm. It's hard to know that it's going to get over, because all of a sudden you're living right there into it. But there's some other things. He said there's a storm, and he said, but the Bible says, and there arose a storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship, so that it was now full. And he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. And he was. I like how it says that. You know, that it just takes it for granted. It doesn't say and Jesus was in the back. It says he. In other words, when God starts talking about His Son, it's always He. He helped me. He saved me. He loved me. Amen. He had mercy on me. He never left me. He never forsook me. It was Him. Amen. And the Bible says, so even though that there was these different things in the storm, let me say this, there's some blessings in the storm. There is some blessings in the storm. Number one of the biggest blessings is, you know what? Is that you got a boat. You know that?
Yeah.
I mean, it might have been full and everything, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot better to be in the boat than out of the boat. I mean, we might be in a storm, and that boat, as far as I'm concerned, is a church. I mean, people can go ahead and say whatever they want about the church, but you get in a storm. And I'll tell you what, you get in a storm, and you thank God for that little boat. You thank God for that place where you can get some comfort. And I know that there was a lot of water coming in there, but it never went down. And I like what one preacher said. One preacher said, and if it goes down, it'll be the Lord's submarine. You know that? I mean, and I thank God for that. And the Bible says it was full. It was full of water. Now, as far as I'm concerned, full means full, but it didn't sink. And you know, that's our promises. Our promises is, you know what? The Lord said, you know, there's some prayers, let me say, Paul was in a boat. Paul did this. He said, well, I don't remember that. Well, I'll show you he did. It was where Mitko was reading, and except it was a little farther back. And he got in a storm. And in his storm, the Bible says, unless I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. I mean, 3 times. I mean, I prayed 3 times, and I think, well, maybe you didn't hear me the first time, Lord. I mean, you know, it's funny to hear some of these Christians talk. Some of these people, they got such way out think. You ought to pray for these different things 3 times, and then don't pray no more. How many did y'all ever hear that before? When you got a problem, pray 3 times about it, and if the Lord doesn't answer, then stop. I think, you ain't never had a real problem. I mean, that's like a dog biting your leg. Stop it, dog. Stop it, dog. Stop it, dog. I'm not going to stop 3 times, and that dog walking down the street with a dog hanging on the leg. I mean, if something really gets a hold. Now, I know Paul, see, now, the thing was about Paul, though, is he had something different than most people had. See, when he prayed, the Lord answered him. And when the Lord answered him, and he said, my grace is sufficient for thee, for your weakness is made perfect. He said, let me read it. He said, for my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. So when he prayed, the Lord told him that. And I don't know how many times he told him that. Maybe he told him that 3 times. I'm sure the Lord spoke to him those same words more than once, though. I'm sure he told him that a lot of times. I'm sure when Paul said something, maybe when he was in the deep and he was in peril of his countrymen, and in this and in that and in this, he said, Paul, just take care of it. Don't worry about it. My grace is sufficient for thee. But you see, when we get in problems, what we do is I tend more like the disciples. I mean, you know, I like what Brother Jack Wood said. Brother Jack Wood said he was like you, Brother Nathan. He liked reading those red words of Jesus. And he said, one day I was reading those red words, and there'd be a whole bunch of red words and then some black words. And then there'd be some more red words and then black words. And then more words and then black words. And he said, I started looking at all those black words, and those were the disciples' words. And he said, and I realized every time I read those black words, they were interrupting the Lord. And I thought, yeah, that's me. But what happens is when you're in a storm, sometimes what you'll do is you'll over-exaggerate. They go ahead and they looked at the Lord over on a pillow, and they said to him, he was asleep on a pillow, and they awake him and say unto him, Master, carest thou not that we perish? I mean, that's what the flesh does. That's what the devil does. He wants you to think God don't care about you. I mean, as soon as you're going into a storm, he wants you to think, oh, look at there, the Lord's just sleeping over there on a pillow, and he's having a nice time, and you're going through it. But see, it's not like that. When you're in a boat, God can take care of you. When you're with Jesus, God, He takes care of you. And the Bible says, and he arose and rebuked the wind and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said unto them, Why are ye so fearful? That was like, will thou be healed? What are you so scared about? Well, I can't say this to you, Lord, but you were sleeping. And it was bad. I mean, if you only knew. I mean, that's how we are. But that's okay, because you see, God's bigger than us. And we can trust God. But he said, why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? And that's what it comes down to. You know what the good thing about the storm is? The good thing about the storm is that the Lord's with you. You just have to have faith in Him. You just have to say, well, He knows where we're going. He's the engineer. He knows where this track is going. He knows where this ship is going. This last time we went to Istanbul, and we went on those ferries a couple times, and it was funny because we were going to Dolmabahce, and I asked somebody, I said, now how do we take the ferry over there? And he said, you don't take the ferry over there. And he said, you take the metro. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, but my daughter, the best thing to do is if you look stupid, what you do is you blame your littlest child. And I told the Turk, I said, my daughter, she wants a boat ride. And he said, oh, okay. He said, you have to go all the way over there. He said, go all the way over to the Asian side, and then from all the way over there, then go to Dolmabahce. I said, will that take us right to the front door? He said, that'll take you right to the front door. And it took us probably about 2 hours to do that on a boat ride. And the funny thing was, is when we were done, we went ahead and we got on the metro, we got on that streetcar, and we got home in about 5 minutes. But I was happy. And I was just happy she didn't want to take another boat ride. But I was thinking about them boat rides and everything, and I was thinking, wow, this is really beautiful. I mean, it was cool out and everything like that. But I thought about, man, all those different ferries, that turn over and everything like that. And all of a sudden, people have real problems. And people have problems. But you see, the hard thing about that is they don't have the Lord. And we got the Lord. And sometimes the devil wants us to think, the biggest thing the devil wants you to think is that God doesn't care about you. He just wants you to think, He don't love you, He don't care about you. And that's why they said, Master, carest thou not that we perish. But I like the Lord. He never said, don't you, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't think I care about you? He didn't say that. He just knew, you just need to open your eyes, fellas. You need to look and see what's happening. You watch. You want to see how much I care about you? Peace be still. And everything was fine. And you know what? Listen, there's nobody that can explain that. There's nobody that can explain how somebody can stand up and say to the sea, peace be still. Only Jesus could do that. And that's why they said, what manner of man is this? And you know what? There's problems that Christians have. And you know what? And nobody can give them peace. And yet the Lord can speak a word and give them peace. And you know what? That's our master. That's the one that helps us. That if you want to know if God cares about you, look what He's done for you. Like Brother Ralph preaches, He's giving you the best that heaven had, and He set you right next. He's giving you the best place other than His own place. And God's been good to us, and I thank God for that. So every now and then the devil will come to you and say, God don't care about you. And you just remember He's in the boat with you. You just remember that, that one word from Him can go ahead and settle everything. And this world, they can't give you peace. Like I said the other day, the peace of God that passeth all understanding. And one word from God can help everybody.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Amen.